Es
When
el
today's
de, el
rich and famous
de, el de Palantir, ¿no? ¿Qué rollo? ¿Qué hace Palantir? ¿Qué hace Palantir?
tech companies talk about what they do, they usually say something like, "We are connecting the world." And by that they mean we are creating a sexualized Farmville that is as addictive as opioids. So when I learned that last year's best performing stock by growth was a Silicon Valley unicorn by the name of Palantir, I was pretty sure I knew what they were up to. Probably they made a streaming service called Boo Boo, a housing rental app called Housely, or earbuds called Doinkers or whatever. But just to be sure, I looked them up. At which point it became clear that these cats are a little different from the techies who typically cross my desk.
We built this kill chain, the digital kill chain. How do you defend your country and kill your enemies? Our product is used on occasion to kill people.
Two things here, folks. First, I have wet my pants. Second, what?
O sea, esta madre es software que se usa para matar gente y tomar decisiones violentas. Un pedo así.
As always, I began my investigation on Bing.com, which I used to type in Google.com, which I used to search for Palantir.com. A quick spin through their site will tell you that Palantir is all about AI-powered automation for every decision and delivering mission-critical outcomes for the West's most powerful institutions. Sentences that boldly ask the question, what if Genghis Khan and Ronald Reagan had a baby who wrote mind-numbingly boring marketing copy? However, I did come across one thing in my research that even I can wrap my noggin around. Whatever Palantir does, it makes them a lot of money.
Palantir stock is booming, absolutely skyrocketing.
Palantir has been a standout this week,
Surging 22%.
Hugest outperformers of the last year.
Right now, there is no comparable company.
I'm here bravely outside of the offices of Palantir. Their stock rocketed up 340% in 2024, peaking this winter to give them a valuation of over $250 billion. And although their stock price has dipped since then, they remain right up there with the likes of AT&T, IBM, and those hunks over at Cisco. But I couldn't let the money distract me. Not now. If I was to truly understand Palantir, I was going to have to take more drastic measures. Like calling people who actually know what they're talking about.
Can you answer that question for me here and now? What exactly does Palantir do?
I will say two things. The fact that you're asking that question goes to the heart of the company and the confusion over it and also the mystique of it. Number two is I will tell you what they do. They want to win Defense Department contracts, commercial contracts as well, but I think they have their eye at the prize.
Sharon Weinberger is the Wall Street Journal's national security editor, and much like me, she's been covering the U.S. defense industry for over 20 years.
They got their start going back to 2003. In trying to come up with a data analytics platform. We're in the middle of the war on terror. We're involved in operations in Afghanistan. We're involved in operations in Iraq. And what is our number one problem there at the time? It's insurgency. It's roadside bombs, IEDs that were killing U.S. and allied soldiers and infantry on the ground at a really alarming rate. So Palantir...
Entonces es un software, una serie de softwares que usan bases de datos muy grandes, gubernamentales, para espiar en la gente y ver qué verga, qué rollo, quién se va a pasar de verga.
Came in and said, look, we can take all of this information that you're collecting, and the Defense Department collects a whole lot on the battlefield, and integrate it in a database and help you spot bad actors, spot terrorists. That is what they pitched themselves as doing when they were first sort of coming on the scene in 2003, 2004, and really for the first decade plus of its existence. What they've expanded to today is something much bigger, in some ways more interesting, and in some ways kind of posits them to be more successful, which is they are a problem solver for the Department of Defense. You have a problem, we will solve it.
All right, so here's the deal. Palantir is a data analytics software company who got its start during the War on Terror and today has big ambitions to be the U.S. Department of Defense's go-to problem solver.
The idea of a Silicon Valley company saying we kill things, we kill people, like, that we're interested in serving the Department of Defense and the Department of Defense wages war. That was simply unprecedented back in 2003. It was what made them unique. People hadn't seen it, and that they were going to compete with companies that had been around for decades and dominated the market.
The companies Sharon's talking about here are commonly known as the big defense primes. Places like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. The Department of Defense gives these chillers huge contracts to make fighter jets and stuff.
One of the things that these new companies like Palantir are kind of helping to disrupt, which is probably good, is the system of prime contracting and defense contracting. We have a few big contractors that have these giant contracts and they have cost overruns. One reason the Pentagon's budget is so big.
Margaret O'Mara is a historian and professor who studies the modern history of American politics and business and how they overlap.
And this is something that policymakers have been pushing back against for decades and trying to rectify. So yeah, having more companies in the ecosystem, that's probably really good.
Hey everybody, just popping in here to say happy birthday to Jeremy J. Watkins. Jeremy is a man whose information I bought from a hemorrhoidal search and printed out. Palantir is at the front of a new group of companies who say they are going to disrupt the old, slow, bloated defense primes with their new, efficient, innovative, user-friendly Silicon Valley style. Because you either die making boring old fighter jets or you live.
Que es lo que estaba viendo ahorita que empecé el stream, ¿no? Estaba viendo la plataforma sencilla, amigable para tomar decisiones de guerra. De que, hey, tal país está moviendo barcos destructores, ya mandé a un dron para que fuera a buscar el barco, ya vi la ruta posible del barco, las rutas peligrosas posibles del barco, y va en camino en una de esas. ¿Qué puedo hacer? Manda este otro barco para que vaya y defienda ahí. Ya parece que no hubo pedo. Ok, bueno, ya, todo bien, chill out. Todo en una plataforma así, botoncitos, pues. Esta es la mejor decisión, esta es la peor decisión, esto es... You know what I'm saying?
Live long enough to see someone come along with their own swarm of autonomous attack drones.
They've made a ton of really senior hires from US government agencies, and also a number of really senior Palantir executives have been appointed by Trump to senior government positions.
Palantir has been hiring well from, I guess, the pool of people that know how the government...
Que Palantir, yo fíjate como que los había escuchado, pero pues no, nunca les había puesto atención. Cuando vi el desfile que hizo Trump del ejército y la verga hace poco, uno de los... se me hizo muy raro que tuviera patrocinadores, ¿no? Como que si haces un desfile de tu gobierno, de tus armas, tus soldados y la verga, como que está muy raro que pongas patrocinadores, ¿va? Pero pues bueno, ahorita en los tiempos de idiocracia, así funciona el pedo. Esta era una de las empresas que estuvo patrocinando ese evento que hizo Trump con los militares. Palantir, por todos lados veías.
system works.
Tabby Kinder is the Financial Times West Coast finance editor, and Cynthia O'Merku is an investigative reporter for the FT. Together they wrote a piece about how successful Palantir has been at landing government contracts, pointing out that the company has done quite a good job of cultivating, shall we say, intimate, toe-tickling relationships with governments.
Palantir has been built on people from government. They are obviously informed. They're people that work on these really crucial missions and in the armed forces and all those sorts of places where Palantir has traditionally sold its business.
Que es una de las cosas que promueve mucho el vato este, el de los pelos chinos. Que si hablas con alguien que te dice que trabajó con ellos, con Palantir, pues puedes estar seguro que es una persona, o sea, high class a la verga.
And boy, have these boys been selling some business. Palantir has landed over $1.3 billion in Department of Defense contracts since 2009. This is for stuff like the Army's Vantage Data Analytics platform, this James Bond-style AI satellite computer suitcase, an AI-powered drone system called Project Maven, and Titan, the Army's first AI-defined vehicle, which Project AI satellite computer.
Entonces, no nomás es software lo que hacen, va, también ya tienen hardware, tienen chingaderas ahí.
Suitcase, an AI-powered drone system.
Creo que el sistema que usa este Maven fue el que vimos ahorita al principio, la presentación de esa madre, a lo mejor.
Called Project Maven, and Titan, the Army's first AI-defined vehicle, which promises to do things like reduce sensor-to-shooter timelines, reduce soldier workflow burdens and cognitive load.
Era así como que, ok, los satélites detectan algún movimiento raro y en automático mi sistema manda un dron para revisar ahí la zona, a ver qué rollo, qué está pasando. Si los satélites no me están dando suficiente información.
And enable long-range precision fire for the modern battle space. Basically, stuff that not only goes vroom.
Y lo hacen automático, pues. Lo hacen automático, te dan las opciones, te dice más o menos qué está pasando, qué opciones tienes.
Vroom and pew pew, but also beep boop beep. Scary shit here, folks. But Palantir's government contracts extend well beyond the military. Scary pew. Basically, stuff that not only goes vroom vroom and pew pew, but also beep boop beep.
Lo que hace la empresa básicamente, cosas que hacen vroom vroom, cosas que hacen pium pium y cosas que hacen beep boop beep. Beep boop beep.
Scary shit here, folks. But Palantir's government contracts extend well beyond the military. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. contracted Palantir to track outbreak data and set up a...
Que el vato lo dice bien abierto, ¿no? De que sí, o sea, mi tecnología pues se usa, pues sí, en ocasiones para matar gente.
System to distribute vaccines. More controversially, Palantir reportedly helped Immigration and Customs Enforcement with all sorts of stuff, including a surveillance system to plan and organize workplace raids on an original contract worth as much as $127 million. During the 2010s, the New Orleans Police Department ran a secretive partnership with Palantir to test predictive policing technology, which could have been named Minority Report if we had any taste. Around the world, Palantir's tech is being used by the Ukrainian military, by the Israeli military for, quote, war-related missions, and by the British government to overhaul the technology behind the NHS, England's state-run health service, which oversees...
Entonces, se usa en el sistema de salud para ver qué pedo con la salud de la gente, pues depende de las cosas que hagan y va. Todo un análisis que hace sobre cada persona, va. Entonces, pues al sistema de salud le puede decir de que, ok, esa persona vale verga, esa persona no tanto, esa persona va a pasar por aquí, esa persona va a pasar por acá. A las policías, ahí va a haber crimen, esa zona está peligrosa, ve para allá. Ese vato es un terrorista, tiran un misil. Ese edificio lo usa gente importante. Tírale un dron.
Is one of the biggest repositories of individual patient data in the world.
So in the UK, it became quite a controversial, set of contracts.
Entonces, tienen acceso a todas las bases de datos de todo ese sistema de salud y pues con todas esas bases de datos las puedes analizar para tomar decisiones fáciles, ¿no? Le hacen una aplicación así para que pip, 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 pip.
Implemented, the UK government had opened itself up with open arms, or welcomed Palantir with open arms, whereas civil liberty groups and groups with privacy concerns were a lot more skeptical. I think there's been a lot of concern around Palantir and what it really means for them to provide these services, and especially privacy advocates have been very concerned about its offerings, and Palantir has pushed against a lot of this concern. But I think it is about transparency and how much access can you get and what can you do behind the scenes that another company cannot and that is being done outside the purview of the public.
And even with all of this government work lined up, Palantir has still managed to girl boss its way into an impressive book of commercial business. Banks and government regulators use stuff like Palantir's anti-money laundering and customer data tracking products. BP has been a longtime partner, using Palantir's software.
O sea, también para eso, ¿no? O sea, fíjate, en los bancos y así para ver, detectar lavadero de dinero.
To support its digital transformation program. Palantir's chief technology officer tweeted last year that the company's AI clients include United Airlines, Lowe's, General Mills, and do not sleep on Tampa General Hospital. By Jove, they've even...
Que entre las cosas que dicen que hacen, y que les ha gustado enfocarse mucho en esa madre, es de controlar de cierta manera a la población, ciertas creencias para que se inclinen un poquito más para acá o que se inclinen un poquito más para allá, depende de lo que el gobierno ocupe.
Got their paws in big pickleball. Neighbors, if you think pickleball paddles are loud, just wait till you hear motherfucking Titan rolling down your street. It's the Army's first AI-defined vehicle, folks. Long range, precision fire, for the modern battle space. Overall, Palantir's commercial revenue in the United States jumped by 54%.
Ese ya lo teníamos en el GTA, ¿no? El GTA nos estaba avisando y nosotros ni en cuenta.
Last year, a lot of that momentum driven by Palantir's pivot from data surveillance in their early years to AI products today. Now, the honchos who originally created this sprawling Palantir beast are none other than Peter Thiel and this guy, who looks like if Taika Waititi got electrocuted. His name is Alex Karp. Though Thiel tends to stay in the shadows like the sassy little mystery minx he is, Karp is one of those modern tech CEOs.
Este vato en todos lados sale, el otro güey es más privadón, pero mucha gente le tira de que es el anticristo, güey. Que el otro güey fue el que fundó PayPal junto con Elon Musk. Y después de vender PayPal, junto con este vato, fundaron Palantir.
Who says a bunch of crazy shit to feverish crowds of employees and retail investors that he calls Palantirians, leading them like mother flippin' Caesar Augustus.
It's definitely been in this kind of meme stock, Reddit, retail, army.
Eso es lo otro. En sus inicios, la acción la movilizaron mucho a través de Reddit. Que ahí viene otra vez el tema de que tienen tecnologías para hacer que la gente se mueva para un lado o se mueva para el otro, pues ¿sí me entiendes? Ahí estaban haciendo sus experimentos en Reddit.
For a while, the subreddit for Palantir traders is, I think it's about 100,000 people now. I mean, they refer to Alex Karp, the chief executive, as Daddy Karp. He's really...
O sea, lo hicieron así como una de esas inversiones, una acción meme, güey. Que pues le iba muy bien por los contratos gubernamentales que iba agarrando cada vez más poderosos, ¿no?
He responded to that by saying kind of increasingly... I'm trying to find a polite way to say this, just increasingly kind of out there things in his interviews.
That's right, Tabby. It's always dangerous to start calling rich guys daddy because you never know what they're gonna feel emboldened to say next.
Me as a front man offending half of America.
I don't think in win-lose. I think in domination.
Almost nothing makes a human...
Esa entrevista lo que dice de que él piensa no en ganar o perder, él piensa en dominar. Estaba viendo un pedacito, está curioso lo que dice.
Happier than taking the lines of cocaine away from these short sellers.
I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us.
If you have one tool in your creator toolkit, it should be this one. So a few months ago, I was completely overwhelmed.
Now, despite whatever thoughts you have on good old American Fent P, Karp is a tricky figure to pin down. Yes, he partnered with Peter Thiel, the notorious far-right libertarian who
Tiene sus temas,
Trump's 2016 campaign and bankrolled J.D. Vance's political career to build a data surveillance company for hunting down terrorists, all stuff that might be easy to generalize as conservative. But then again, he backed Kamala Harris during the latest presidential election, he frequently donates to Democrats, he likes to go trail running, and loves Denver. All stuff that might be easy to generalize as lesbian. Everybody, I think we got a new type of guy on our hands.
Karp is someone who comes from a kind of left-wing background. Peter Thiel, who's the founder and really the person behind Palantir, is famous in the Valley for being a very outspoken conservative or a techno-libertarian. They have these really interesting, strange bedfellows in terms of leadership, but I think they have something in common with the old style Valley, of the Valley of the Cold War era, in that there's this understanding that there is a partnership that's necessary between private industry and the defense establishment in order to get the best tech in the hands of the U.S. government. It's waxed and waned, but the business of war has always been Silicon Valley's business to some degree.
The relationship that Alex Karp and Palantir are pushing for between the tech industry and the Department of Defense isn't so much a new status quo as it is a fresh version of an old one. Karp is very open about being a fan of the old school tech industry, one where Lockheed Missiles in Space was the largest employer in Silicon Valley through the 1980s.
Que la empresa esta se trata de eso, ¿no? Más ofensiva que defensa. Me quedé pensando ahorita porque pues, están hablando del departamento de defensa, que ahora Trump le cambió el nombre al departamento de guerra. Y estos vergas, pues a eso se dedican, ¿no? No.
80s, one where the Department of Defense built the original internet, one where Oppenheimer's Manhattan Project brought together the finest scientific and engineering minds in the U.S. to collaborate with the government. In his new book, which I read on the subway and was then immediately hit on by a very Ford attack drone, Alex Karp argues that the tech industry has lost its way over the last few decades, focusing on consumer products that essentially abandon any serious attempt to advance society. He writes that the software industry should rebuild its relationship with the govt, and while the blending of business and national purpose makes many uneasy, it is now the job of Silicon Valley to defend the West. And it's here that Karp has differentiated himself from his 21st century tech contemporaries with how open he is about both patriotism and making tech products for killing. But his peers are starting to follow suit.
The Valley has always had these ties with Washington, D.C., but often has been very low-key about it and coy about it and pretended that, oh, we don't do anything with those people over there. They're like, we don't care about politics. It matters nothing to our business. We're a free market miracle. And in the background, they're like, can I have this tax break? I'm interested now. It's just more overt. And now I think there's a more broader public consciousness of like, oh, wait a minute. People like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, they get a lot of federal contracts.
Now, despite Karp and Palantir's very real momentum, it doesn't mean that they are that close to revolutionizing the defense industry and unseating those old defense primes.
They have yet to prove that they can build a major weapons system better than a Lockheed Martin, Boeing, or Raytheon. They may have their own views on that, but when I look across at like what's being used in Ukraine on a mass scale, that is not yet the Palantirs or Anderols of the world. Doesn't mean they won't do it, but they have yet to prove they can.
Nonetheless, it is possible that Palantir will be the future, and if they are, then the approach that they have taken to rise to prominence. Well, this would all mean an entirely new paradigm for how American defense companies operate.
You don't typically see the heads of Lockheed Martin or Raytheon.
Entonces, según lo que estamos viendo ahorita, ¿tiene el valor o no tiene el valor?
Giving opinions about.
¿Están haciendo lo que están diciendo que están haciendo y tiene valor lo que dicen que están haciendo? Oh, pura verga.
How the world should be ordered. Lockheed Martin is not trying to appeal to the day traders or to the meme stocks or to any of that. Palantir they're kind of trying to sell themselves to the nation writ large. I think that is part.
Porque supone que los chinos ya tienen sistemas muy buenos de esa madre, ¿no? De recopilación de datos y análisis de datos.
Of what is new in this era is Silicon Valley companies saying working with the Pentagon is not a dirty business. It helps national defense. These are good things to do. And clearly their message is working. Will that work in the long term? We'll see.
Indeed, we will see. For now, though, in the meantime, I've got my eyes on you, Palantir. And I encourage all my fellow citizens to do the same. For if a defense company thinks that it can... Oh shit.
And now for a dramatic reading of Palantir Reddit posts. Threw 1.6 mil into Palantir because the CEO's head looks like my grandpa balls. So, are we warmongers? Palantir is a good stock, but is it an ethical investment? Hamas really took us to the moon.
Eso está pasado de verga.
0 upvotes, 30 comments. Software in war, fire emoji. I'm gonna come, let's go to the moon.
Palantir. Palantir. Y entonces, esta gente de Palantir hizo tratos con los de Oracle, que son los que tienen las bases de datos de la fucking LAT.
Criticize your former employer. It's taboo to do that. It's one thing to criticize your former employer. It's taboo to do that. But to criticize an employer that also owns extremely lethal technologies and surveillance technologies that are highly invasive and used in war zones is something else entirely.
It's 2025. We're all kind of used to government surveillance. The idea that we're all being watched all the time and don't own our own personal data has become normalized.
Entonces, si las redes sociales ya me pueden enseñar a mí videos de lo que estaba pensando, pues imagínate lo que estos sistemas pueden hacer también, ¿no? Usándolos no para venderme cosas, pero pues para ver qué verga estoy pensando y que what the fuck.
We're also used to the military spending vast amounts of our money on just a few giant defense contractors. But one tech company wants to change both of those things
and become the ultimate military contractor and the ultimate arbiter of all of our data.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
Check out Palantir shares surging 22% after the company cited a boom in demand for its AI software from the U.S. government.
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am.
Palantir, a tech company based here in Denver, claims they can revolutionize government systems with their data analysis software, newly powered by artificial intelligence.
They've been hired by the Department of Defense, the FBI, local police departments.
Ahí es donde está el aeropuerto ese del caballo y la verga, ¿no?
And even the IRS and Wendy's to take in the information those organizations collect even more information, and use that data to draw conclusions.
It can be used to completely reconfigure organizations' ontology, its reality, what systems matter, what information matters, what processes matter, how they are structured, what biases are introduced at each of those stages.
We talked to a former Palantir employee, dug into decades of research, and listened to hours of Alex Karp's own words to unwrap the layers of Palantir's carefully cultivated sales pitch, how they capitalize on fear, uncertainty, and unrest.
I don't think in win-lose.
Las batallas son ganadas antes de que empiecen.
I think in domination. This is a company built for bad times. Bad times mean strong finances and turn.
Conflicto. Hey, hay pedo, tienes pedos, güey. Fíjate, güey, mira. Tengo una aplicación que te puede decir dónde tienes pedos.
Bad times are very good for Palantir because we build products that are robust, that are built for danger.
Let's rewind a little.
Palantir's story starts with one of the most effective things a company can have for sales: fear.
After the September 11th attacks, the United States government began expanding surveillance both at home and abroad. This was, of course, a boon for the defense industry at large. Simultaneously, the Silicon Valley tech industry was growing fast and making people in a once obscure industry very, very rich.
Que ahí Oracle agarró un muy buen contrato con la CIA, ¿no? Para venderles ahí almacén en sus bases de datos.
Very quickly. Like the founders and executives at PayPal, known as the PayPal Mafia. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn guy, and Peter Thiel. When PayPal was sold, Thiel had millions of dollars burning a hole in his pocket and an idea. PayPal had developed systems for detecting fraud and crimes on the platform. What if they could use similar thinking to analyze the world at large? So Thiel pulled from his network to build out a new company. One of the first hires was Thiel's Stanford Law School roommate, Alex Karp, who'd gone on after Stanford to get a PhD in not business or computer science or engineering, but neoclassical social theory. They named the company Palantir after
teoría social. Te fijas, ese vato está más tripeado en manejar a la gente, en cómo predecir los movimientos de la gente y encaminarlos hacia donde tú quieres, ¿no?
After the Palantiri from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
In Lord of the Rings, the Palantir Stone is
de una manera más eficiente y usando las aplicaciones y la IA y todas esas mamadas, las computadoras, los programadores, todo eso, para... ¿Qué voy a decir? Para la gente, algo voy a decir, fuck.
Magical object that allows its users to predict the future or to see what's going on in a remote location.
It was originally created by the elves. It was meant to be used for good purposes. It is potentially a very dangerous technology. It's very powerful.
Long have you hunted me. Lo hicieron con todo el propósito, ¿no? De ponerle el nombre de Palantir de la bolita esta.
So that's Middle Earth, but what does Palantir do in a regular Earth?
And what we do is we use what legal scholars call predicate-based search. So we would look at you, and then we would go out and say, oh, there's lots of different things in your life that may be indicative of someone involved in bad behavior.
Put simpler, they make software that makes it easier for their customers to collect and analyze data, and then act on that.
Eso es analizar a la gente, ver qué pedo, what the fuck is they doing.
Analysis, with and without AI. By 2013, 10 years after their founding, Palantir's client list included the FBI, the CIA.
Pero también va, si sabes toda esa información de la gente, pues puedes controlarla.
The NSA, manera, ¿no? The Marines, the Air Force, Special Operations Command, and more.
Did your company help to track and kill Osama bin Laden?
You know, we can never. I'll tell you, the closest thing to an answer is when you look at when you open the paper and look in the news about these kind of things, there's a 2/3 chance, depending on the country involved, that somehow my company was involved.
Fundamentally, the mission that is pushed to employees is that we're.
O sea que en todas las misiones encubiertas y todas esas pinches mamadas acá, que este vato siempre ha estado metido, pues.
Solving the world's hardest problems and supporting Western institutions. That is the main driver of sort of this militaristic culture that is developed inside of Palantir.
If you do not feel comfortable supporting the legitimate efforts of America and its allies in the context of war, don't join Palantir.
This entire message of like we are the most lethal, we are the most able to surveil and process large amounts of data.
You have created the system which you call kill chain.
Privately. Publicly, the lawyers have some innocuous something like tech for the amelioration of unwanted blah blah blah. Some term we're supposed to use.
Okay, let's.
For me, it's the kill chain.
Kill chain sounds good.
Kill chain isn't an original term created by Palantir. It's the more general military verbiage for the series of decisions leading from identifying a target to taking their life. Palantir's contract added their software and artificial intelligence to the kill.
El Gotham fue el que vimos ahorita, ¿no?
It's quicker and better and safer and more violent.
It's tech that Juan helped market.
It reduces the distance.
Quicker, better, and more violent.
You have to the problem, but when you're able to take step back and really see all the narratives and how they were shaped and the actual application of these technologies, your whole world starts falling apart, which is something that, definitely happened to me.
Juan didn't leave Palantir entirely for ethical reasons. He just got another job. But the reason he eventually started speaking out against Palantir came after watching the Israeli invasion of Gaza following the October 7th attacks. Palantir has contracts with the Israeli Defense Forces. The exact nature of the contracts is opaque, intentionally, but there is evidence to suggest that Palantir's artificial intelligence tech was used for selecting targets in Gaza. Karp doesn't mind the controversy. In fact, it's part of the marketing.
Palantir will even pick up the projects that other companies rejected.
Que era un tema que le tiraban mucho a Obama, ¿no? Que Obama fue el que empezó a usar así los drones para matar raza y así. Y que decían de que no, que se pueden equivocar, que los drones con inteligencia artificial, ¿no? De que reconocer a los objetivos y así. Esta gente andaba metida.
Did for political reasons.
We are very comfortable being unpopular.
Karp doesn't think controversy will lose Palantir customers.
Whatever is pissing them off, they're still buying the product.
Wendy's hired Palantir to help with their supply chain. Palantir works with health insurance companies to build AI for denials management to protect revenue.
Do you want Palantir's AI making
también es empresa de logística, pues o qué verga.
Decisions about what care is covered for you and your loved ones?
They also do business with for-profit hospitals, major investment banks, and even other defense contractors. In 2024, Palantir brought in nearly $2.9 billion in revenue, 55% of which came from government sources, with the vast majority being American. So let's look at their pitch to the American government. Last year, Palantir CTO Shyam Sankar put out a presentation and white paper called The Defense Reformation. He cites The Last Supper, which was a secretive 1993 meeting between defense industry executives and the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Over a dozen companies walked in, and only a few walked out. That dinner is often cited as the origin of our consolidated military-industrial complex.
And to me, I think this was the definitive moment that kicked off the financialization of defense. From that point forward, it became all about buybacks and dividends and leverage ratios.
Criticizing the financialization of the defense industry, calling out stock buybacks, that doesn't sound like a defense executive. That sounds more like the exact argument about the defense industry that we have made before.
I think what's interesting to me about Palantir is how they co-opt the language of revolution.
But Sankar's argument did work on somebody, Uncle Sam. The Defense Innovation Board, an advisory group within the Department of Defense, cited Sankar's presentation multiple times in their 2024 report on why the DoD needs to divert more of their budget to emerging technology. That's giving money to Palantir. There's a reason Palantir just replaced Ford Motors in the S&P 100 in the months after Trump was elected. The Trump administration is an ideal customer for what Palantir is selling. First, there are many former Palantir employees sprinkled across the Trump administration, from inside DOGE to foreign policy advisors to high-level technology appointees. And Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel, heavily invested in the company, is also heavily invested in President Trump and Vice President Vance. He was a major campaign donor to both. Then the stated goal of DOGE is to streamline and combine government data, which is exactly what Palantir does.
But the ways that the government is defrauded is that the computer systems don't talk to each other.
And obviously, Karp is loving it.
Disruption, in the end of the day, exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. There's a revolution. Some people can get their heads cut off. Like, it's like we're expecting to see really unexpected things and to win.
And what is winning, according to Palantir? This is CTO Shyam Sankar in
cabeza,
2021.
Turning to government, we continue to advance our mission of becoming the U.S. government's central operating system as we extend our footprint across defense, healthcare, and civilian agencies.
The government's operating system. They want everything to funnel through Palantir. Palantir already has contracts with the IRS, going through taxpayer data to save auditors time by
quieren tener
finding the
acceso
easiest audits to
a
pursue.
todos los datos completos.
Now, Wired reports, Doge will likely hire Palantir to create unified software for the entire IRS, a mega API that would allow anyone with access to view and possibly alter all IRS data in one place. That's all of your financial information. And they have multiple contracts with the Department of Health and Human Services, including nearly $100 million to support HHS's core administrative data and applications, to manage, ingest, and access data securely across business domains. HHS's core responsibility is Medicare and Medicaid. That's control over millions of Americans' health records and their access to healthcare. So what does it mean for one contractor to have all that power, data, and taxpayer money as profit, especially as AI gets involved?
As we kind of increasingly live in a simulated world, we lose touch with reality and the human decisions that matter, and we move closer towards governance by algorithm. Not only made by decisions of automated artificial intelligence systems, which is a problem, but more importantly, subject to decisions made by the people who are influencing these AI systems and creating them in order to fulfill an agenda for whatever their profit-seeking or control-seeking objectives are. And when I see Doge kind of going into every agency and addressing the IT...
Entonces, con esta tecnología, ¿qué haces si un país te está cagando el palo, pero es un aliado tuyo? Haces que su gente haga cagadero. Entonces, a través de Reddit y todas esas mamadas que usan ahí para modificar el pensamiento de la gente, pues así en una de esas te causan una ¿cómo se llama? Una revolución en tu país, ¿no? Con las puras redes sociales.
Department first, I see it as an opportunity to try to change reality itself.
But so what? Why am I telling you all of this? Palantir has no problem being seen as Big Brother, as all-powerful, as lethal even.
We're at the brink of using these technologies potentially to run our government, to run our battlefields, and our personal lives. Using artificial intelligence as a sort of panacea solution across our federal departments, and especially when they're, again, wielded by people with a very distinct agenda, puts everyone at risk.
It almost feels like that's been the plan all along. Here's co-founder Peter Thiel in 2010 at Libertopia, a libertarian conference, speaking about tech companies and government.
The basic idea was that we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
And here's Alex Karp in 2009 on civil liberties with regards to Palantir's work.
The central question, in my view, of civil liberties is how, it's not if the government has data, because let's assume the government has as much data as a health insurance company. It's how is that data being used? Is it being used in a way that's lawful? Meaning, do they have the right to use it? And is it being migrated into places it's not allowed to be used? We allow the enforcement of rules that government ought to enforce. And by the way, my experience is they want to enforce, or at very least know they need to enforce. And if it's framed in that way, then you can have what is the ultimate Silicon Valley solution.
One co-founder openly wants to use the power of the tech industry to affect politics. The other wants his company to have oversight over how the government data they're paid to handle is used. And the founders of Palantir will retain control in the company no matter what, through an obscure ownership structure. Their Class F shares grant them 49.99% of voting power, even if they collectively own as little as 6% of the company.
At the start of this journey, I was extremely afraid for the repercussions of this writing, of speaking out, but now I'm like, even more convinced that this is absolutely necessary.
We can't replace our current broken system with an even more broken one. And we can't let the worst people in Silicon Valley become our government.
It's not about whether you're actually at risk for speaking out or not. It's just the idea that somebody's watching you is enough to push people into silence.
Como el tema de los beepers, ¿no? Que estaba viendo ahorita hace rato. Que fue un ataque antes de que viniera otro ataque. Que no es que viniera, pero como que... entonces sobres a la verga. Ahí te baila.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support more nonprofit reporting into corporate greed, don't forget to like and subscribe.
They call me a